I'm Courtney and welcome back to my channel. So today we are doing my February wrap-up slash recap where I'm going over all the books that I've read for the month and any other things that happen during the month of February as a kind of roundup for the month leading into March. So even though February is the shortest day or shortest month of the year, I think there wasn't a leap year, right? It's only 28 days this year. It felt so long for some reason, like longer than January did. And I don't know why. Like I didn't do anything differently, I guess. It just felt so long. I don't know if anybody else felt that way, but it's like, wow, we're already in March and it's almost spring, which I'm like, thank goodness. I can't wait to be outside and enjoying the warmer weather. I don't know if this is allergies or a cold happening right now, which unfortunate, but I got to go outside, go for a walk the last few days, go for a run outside downtown as I'm prepping for the London Landmarks Half Marathon, which is, at the time we're watching this, in about 3-ish weeks. Less than a month away until I'm in London, which I cannot wait for, and am pumped for all the books that I will be reading slash purchasing slash taking pictures of while I'm there, and I'm just really excited for that. But in terms of February, let's look back and reflect on that month before moving forward. So I have my Chiltern book journal here that I've kind of created my own reading journal in a way that I've written down what I've been reading and the different stats for the month of February. So in terms of February, I read 10 books, 3,139 pages. And in terms of the format, I read 3 audiobooks or listened to 3 audiobooks and read 7 print books. So February for me was a combination of a couple things. One was romance reads, so dedicating a reading vlog completely with romance novels, contemporary mostly romance novels. And then the last half of the month was honoring Black History Month with Black writers, Black characters, and just celebrating as much as possible with Black History Month. So yeah, so those were kind of my 2 goals for the month, and I hit them pretty well. There was 2 books I was not able to complete for this month, and those were 2 of the Bridgerton books, so Romancing Mr. Bridgerton and To Serve Philip with Love, which is funny because March 25th is when the 2nd season premieres on Netflix, and even though these books are past that point in the series, I guess, or in the book series, I don't know, I still feel okay watching the 2nd season without having the context, because I watched the 1st season, I think. Did I watch? Oh man, I don't remember. I think I listened to the 1st book before watching the series. Oh, I don't remember. I think it was the other way around actually. So maybe I'll do that. I'm just not a fan of Antony, but maybe watching the season will change my mind and I'll want to read the 2nd book. But these other ones are like the 4th and 5th book, I think, in the series, which you don't have to know really much about what happens beforehand, or I can read a synopsis, which is fine. So yeah, so those were my reads there. And then I also had a late night book club pick of Loveless by Alice Oseman, and that was what I closed the month out with. So there is that, and now let's get into the books that I read and then share which one was my favorite. So the first book I read was One of Us is Lying by Bayron and McManus, and this was interesting. I had seen this on Books Nest. I had seen this as a promotion for the TV series on Peacock, and I don't know, I'm like really digging the YA thriller kind of mystery vibes lately. I had wrote for my review of this one that it's very similar to like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, or if you like that book, you'd probably like this series as well. So this follows some teenagers in high school who all get detention for having some phone in their backpack or using a phone for some reason when they shouldn't be, and then somebody dies in detention, and all the students that are in detention with that student are like under investigation. So they're trying to figure out like, how did this person die? Like, was it planned, premeditated, who's responsible, all that kind of stuff. So it's so interesting because these people like really didn't interact with each other beforehand. It's kind of like The Breakfast Club in a way, where like students who had nothing in common or don't know each other or had these assumptions about each other are like interacting with each other for the first time over something like wild. So yeah, so the whole story is going over like each of them having secrets. Oh, that's the other thing too. the person who died, he was responsible for like this website that released different people's secrets, and a lot of these secrets of the students that were in detention were like pretty big, and like were changing their reputations and like threatening their futures past high school and even in high school with their friends and relationships. So that was kind of like motive from what the officers and the detectives were thinking for the students that were in detention. So super interesting, wild ending. There is a sequel. I don't think I'm gonna watch it or read it because it's like different characters like years past, which is fine, but I'm like, I think it's based off like a truth or dare kind of thing, and I'm like, meh. I think I'm gonna stay put with how this one resolved and ended. So this one I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read A Lot Like ADIOS by Alexis Daria, and this one was super cute. I really liked it, and this was diving more into, like I had mentioned, the romance reads for the month. So this is my first print book of the month as well. So this follows 2 childhood best friends as they like were split apart because one moved to the other side of the country to kind of escape his family, and they just had this like awkward intimate experience where they were confused, but they ended up not pursuing that because there were some other lies mixed in there or things being withheld. So they find each other again after 10-ish years, 10, 15 years, where they have to work together for the expansion of Gabe's gym that's going from, in addition to the LA location, also going to be in New York where Michelle is located. So they are working together and seeing each other for the first time in ages, and there's like this chemistry, this heat, this fire that is crackling between them and kind of like bringing back those emotions, and then also bringing back what the issues were in their friendship and why they had split up in terms of being friends. And then, yeah, so some intimacy, some romance thrown in there. I love this too, how it addresses being bisexual. So both of them identify as being bisexual, and it's very much like it's not like a big deal. Like it is in a way because there's representation there, but the way that it's presented is more so like, this is who I am, this has been my experience, like, oh, I've dated men, I've dated women, etc., etc., and they're just kind of like sharing as like oh, here's like some things to keep up to date with me kind of stuff. So that I really appreciated, that it wasn't like some taboo subject at all, but it's very much a part of who they are, and like they're not afraid to share that with each other and like let their family members know. I also loved how this had elements of like a big family that like knows each other's business and all that, and I didn't realize Michelle is part of this group within her cousins known as the Primas of Power, and the first book in the Primas of Power, I guess, series was with You Had Me and Ola was one of the cousins, so I'm assuming there's going to be a third book for the third cousin, which I think is pretty fun. So yes, this I thought was pretty good, and I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then I listened to Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Boulley, and this I thought was very interesting. So it is a lot to do with like a mystery, with like a contemporary YA, with learning about indigenous peoples in, I believe it was in Michigan, was where it was set. So I don't know, I just love learning about different cultures, especially how it blends in with being in the United States and what that looks like for a group of people. And this had to deal with this young woman, Doness, who is starting college soon and was like a hockey player, and one of her best friends was murdered, and it's all surrounding this idea of like drugs and like addiction within the indigenous peoples or Native American community. And there's like some FBI agents hidden among their 2 undercover that she becomes aware of. Her uncle was involved, who also passed away. I think, I can't remember if that was through a drug incident as well. I don't remember, but it was just interesting to learn. There were so many like indigenous words being used, and I listened to it, so it was cool to have like the pronunciation and everything in there as well. So this I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. I would recommend it to folks that are more fans of like non-traditional historical fiction, since this was set back, oh gosh, I want to say late 90s, early 2000s, even though that's like not that far away if you really think about it. It's still history as it comes to Native Americans in our country. And just wanting to know more about like American history, because this is a huge part of it too, of indigenous peoples, indigenous lands, being able to vote in the tribe, whether you're a part of the tribe or, because that was a big thing too, like Doness had half, not necessarily like citizenship, but her parents had a very interesting history where like one belonged to the tribe and one didn't, or there was just no record for her to be able to vote on tribe matters because she wasn't considered like a part of that. So that I thought was interesting. But yeah, there are some trigger warnings in there, so I look at those up ahead of time if you want to be prepared for that. Then I read All the Feels by Olivia Dade, and this was another book in my romance reading vlog, and I won't go into too much detail here since I expressed it in the vlog itself. I also wrote a review about it, but this I thought was amazing, and it dealt with a lot with representation and also like two people that start off like enemies to lovers in a way, and what is like popularity and like stress, anxiety. There is trigger warnings or content warnings of domestic abuse in this, so be careful of that going into it. But yeah, it centers around two characters that one's famous and was involved with some kind of like public display of like violence or something that like ruined his reputation and threatened his career, and the folks that he works with on this TV series, and this woman who is a cousin to, I think, like the agent or the person that oversees the show that he is on, and she is like trying to find a new direction or a new career, and she basically becomes his babysitter so he doesn't get in trouble again. So they spend a lot of time together, go on different trips, and develop some feelings and some intimate experiences together. So this I thought was really cool, and just a different way to tell a story. Like you could probably guess where it's going to go, but I liked like I said, it's more, even though it has to do with celebrity status, it's still grounded in a little bit reality of like attraction, like tackling challenging issues like mental health, domestic abuse, body positivity, all of that. So this I gave a 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This is the latest Colleen Hoover book that came out, I believe, in late January, early February, I can't remember. But I was so excited to get this because I'm a big Coho fan, love her, listened to a webinar about it where she talked to another author of romance novels, and they just talked about their process and like their characters, favorite characters, least favorite characters, what they would change, all that good stuff. So this follows two characters. Kenna, who has just been released from prison for, I don't know if it's involuntary manslaughter, but like her fiance slash boyfriend slash father of her now 4 or 5-year-old daughter. They were involved with a car accident with alcohol and all of that, and then she was sent to prison where she actually gave birth to her daughter, DM, and then wasn't allowed to see her ever, like was cut off, and like the guardianship went to the father's parents. And then this gentleman Ledger was like a best friend of the father of the child, and also like good friends with the parents, or now the grandparents of DM, and is very involved with DM's upbringing, lives across the street from her, very protective of her, and then meets Kenna, doesn't know who she is right away, and develops feelings for her, and they get kind of romantic, and then finds out who she is, and then is caught in this weird and challenging space of, do I protect DM or do I sympathize with the mother of the child who just wants a second chance, who made a mistake and is learning from it and is trying to do the best that she can. So this I thought was good in terms of learning about like what that reintroduction into society looks like for ex-convicts, and like giving them a chance, and how hard it was for her to get a job, to get a place to live, and trying to like do what's right for her daughter and be involved with her daughter and like know who she is. So that I thought was very interesting. I did think though it like wrapped up a little too nicely at the end. I think it was kind of rushed. So I did give it a 3.5 out of 5. I think the themes here were important, but I think the execution as it came to the end of the story could have been stronger. Then I read Cinderella is Dead by Kalynn Bayron, and this was my favorite slash top book of the month because it was so different from any other like alternative like retelling or fairy tale retelling. I had compared this to All the Ever Afters by Danielle Teller, which I read over the summer, which was a retelling of Cinderella's stepmother and like her bringing up, her name was Agnes, and this is set 200 years in the future after Cinderella has passed away, and it's a very much like misogynistic, like Handmaid's Tale kind of world. So this I did read for the start of the Black History Month, like reads that I wanted to finish out the month with, and this was like, oh, it made me so infuriated with the world that Sophia had found herself in, or like was born into. It's been 200 years, like I said, since Cinderella was born or had passed away, but the world and the land is so dominated by males, and like women's places not to speak or to be a prize and all of that. And like Sophia is not about that. Like I love how her character throughout the entire thing was like down with the man, down with the government, and I'm gonna break it to see if I can change it. So that I thought was freaking amazing. And yeah, there are some trigger warnings in here as well. I feel like, wow, there's been at least in the next two books that I'll be talking about as well. Actually three. I think the rest of the books that I'll be talking about has a lot of content warnings. But yeah, I think this one is so important in terms of like independence, or like women's independence, acceptance of who you are, since it is an LGBTQIA plus story as well. So yeah, a lot of good takeaways here about just strength and like empowering other women. So yes, definitely a win for me. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then I listened to Vladimir by Julia May Jonas, and this one, oh, even as it started, I was already like mad because it talked about like having affairs, and I'm not a big fan of like cheating, affairs, like that kind of stuff. But the more I read, not that it was more okay, but they talked about how it was an agreement in the marriage, so of polygamy. So I'm like, okay, I guess that makes it better. But these two professors are like having, like, they're married and they have like their consistent relationship, marriage, whatever, but they're a little bit older in life, thinking like their 50s-ish, maybe early 60s, and they are still interacting with other folks and having relationships with them until the husband is like accused of, I don't know if it's like some of the women he was with were his students, so there's been like a whole thing about that, and he has to go, I think he was fired and all of that. New professor comes in, and he's a little bit younger, he has a young family, he's like he's 30s, 40s-ish, not like a child, but I don't know, it's just interesting the dynamics between those two families. I got really annoyed. I think it was like 2/3 through the book, maybe 3/4, where something happens and I'm like, how is this okay? Like, I don't understand. Like, how do you justify this being okay? And then like it was kind of accepted in a way. And I don't want to spoil this for you, but if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. Like, wow, I can't believe this person, this character, thought this was okay, and like accepted it themselves as being okay, and like had a plan, and ugh. So I ended up giving this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. If you are a fan of like late in life kind of relationships, go for it, that's fine. I was just not a fan of those couple of plot devices that were in there. It did surprise me, so I guess that's a good thing too, but if that happened in real life, holy smokes, I'd be furious. Then I read Passing by Nella Larson. I've been wanting to read this for so long. So this was another read in my Black History Month reading experience. And this goes through 2 different characters who can pass as white, and they choose very different ways to engage that way because of like the lightness of the skin, even though they are black, or like born from black heritage or black parents. So the one chooses to marry a black man and be like in the black community, while the other chooses to lie and marry a racist, honestly, and like that's described by folks as being a racist or white supremacist, and like he makes all these derogatory and racist statements in front of his wife, who he doesn't know is black, and then in front of her friend, who he also is like, maybe there's something else going on around that coloring, but he's not really sure. He can't put a finger on it. So yeah, I related this one to The Vanishing Half, so that's a contemporary read now, which very similar kind of vibes of what you do with that ability to pass. But I thought it was very important to know like what, and this was set back in like the 1940s, 30s, so way back, and even harder times then for being a Black person in the US. And yeah, so this I gave 4 out of 5 stars for. Very short, you can finish within a day, but very big themes in there about acceptance, self-love, about your community, your culture, and what that looks like. Sorry about the camera angle change. My battery died right after I started talking, or after I finished up talking about passing. So here we go, back into it. All right, then I read The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead, and this is my first book that I've read by him. I picked this up at used bookstore down in South Carolina, like right across from the North Carolina border, and this was very compelling, and it won the Pulitzer Prize. Very well deserved after reading this. And this follows a young man who's about 17 years old, who's in school, or maybe a little bit younger than that, and he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's a young Black youth in like the 1960s Florida, and he was arrested wrongfully and sent to like this like detention center for youths that was segregated with whites and blacks and different like units and everything. And it's not the best experience. So even as like whether white or Black, but more so for Black people in that institute, it's like all young boys, and there's different forms of punishment. Like during the day, they like either work in some of these fields or like some presses, and then they do have some classes which the main character Elwood is like smart and wants to go to college and like knows how to read and everything, and the classes aren't really up to where he wants to be like challenged. But then he meets this friend Turner who's been there for a little bit, and they have a special bond as friends, and they like kind of support each other as they try to like escape and like find a way out. There's these really brutal, very brutal punishments for Elwood, that so much so that he is sent to like the hospital in the little community that they have there for a while. And a lot of students, or a lot of people there, know what happens there in like this remote barn building just off site that has this really large industrial fan that's supposed to block out noise of what happens in there, kind of forms of torture in a way. So that is definitely a content warning going into this, as well as being like hunted as a Black person. So yeah, definitely don't go into this lightly. But yeah, I thought it was very compelling read, beautifully written, even though challenging read for sure. And I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The last book I read was Loveless by Alice Oseman, and this was the Late Night Book Club's pick for the month of February. This follows the young woman Georgia as she's entering college and trying to figure out who she is. She's never fallen in love, never had a kiss, but she finds out that that is due to her identity that she's just learning about and trying to figure out more about, of being asexual and aromantic, or ace or aro. And I had not been familiar with those terms beforehand, so it was a nice education for me. And I think, not that I identify with those identities or know much about that experience, but I think this book does a good job of explaining what that is like for somebody experiencing that, and like being confused and wanting to know more about who they are and how they can show love, even though they may not feel it internally or for somebody else. And that focuses a lot on platonic relationships and family and showing love that way, which I thought was very powerful and just as important to feel something, more so than just like an intimate romantic relationship with a partner per se. So this I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's YA, LGBTQIA friendly, and just an amazing way to introduce those identities and just show what that experience could be like coming out in that way. So those were all the books that I read for the month of February. I hope you enjoyed. A lot of ranges in there. Oh, I didn't go over the different types of books in terms of genres. Oh my gosh, it cut off again. Okay, my apologies. So the different genres that I've read for this past month include contemporary, young adult, fantasy / sci-fi, historical fiction, and thriller / mystery. So yeah, I think again, really doing well with expanding my kind of reading life in terms of genre, in terms of types of books, characters, themes, all that good stuff. So yay! I am starting my March books. I got a few at the library that I need to figure out how they're going to fit into my March TBRs, because I did the TBR jar and I picked out 3 books there. I'm reading A Little Life currently, which is a monster, and then I had 2 ebooks come through to my Libby e-reader, and then 2 physical books from the library that, oh, I don't know. And then I also wanted to finish The Dragon Republic from R.F. Kuang in the Poppy War series. So this will be a great time to use the longer month wisely, but as you can hear and see, I like sneeze in between scenes or takes for this video. I have a cold, allergies, whatever it is, and like it's making it super hard to concentrate on reading right now. So I've been watching episodes of Schitt's Creek. We've been watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, which we never do. But not that anything against that, but we just haven't turned those on. But because I can't concentrate and read before or after dinner, those have just been on. So I'm learning, it's great, but I can't focus on a page right now. So hopefully this will resolve itself soon and I'll be able to get back on track with my reading. So yes, thank you again so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or comment down below what you read for the month of February. If you've read any of the books that I've read for this past month, feel free to comment as much as possible without spoilers if you would like. And then be on the lookout for my next video coming out next week, which should be a surprise. I'm not going to say what it is. And then I have my Little Life reading vlog and then some other things coming up around the bend. So yes, thank you so much. Have a great day and happy reading.